Welcome to Just Relationships, the show that offers you concrete ways to make your relationships better. Whether it's your boss, your spouse, your children, or your friends, the quality of your relationships in life directly affects how you feel about yourself and the success you achieve. Your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer, a psychotherapist, telecoach, author, and seminar leader, will interview top experts to help you learn to manage this essential part of your life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer.
Greetings to you. Have you ever had your heart broken? Have you dealt with heartbreak? Is your heart still broken? If so, stay tuned because I'm very, very happy to introduce you to Dr. Bradley Nelson, author of The Emotion Code: How to Release Your Trapped Emotions for Abundant Health, Love, and Happiness. Releasing your trapped emotions. Welcome, welcome, Dr. Brad.
Well, thank you, Dr. Duffy, for having me on your show. I'm excited.
Oh, thank you. Well, you are a real healer, Dr. Brad, and you use ancient remedies as well as modern, and you are a holistic physician. So, first of all, tell us what you mean by the title of your book, The Emotion Code.
Well, I spent 17 years in a brick-and-mortar practice where I was seeing people of all ages with all kinds of difficulties, and I was trying to figure out what was really wrong with these people. They had all kinds of issues, and they were of all different ages. And as time went by, I found that the single biggest common denominator for all of my patients, no matter what they've been diagnosed with, no matter what their age was something that we now, something that you might call emotional baggage. And to understand what emotional baggage is, you have to understand that the human body is this beautiful energy field, really. We look at our hand and it looks solid, but if you magnify your hand 1,000,000 times, you get right down to the heart of the matter, and really what we are is energy. And that's really what we're made of. Well, we can measure thoughts electronically, and different thoughts have different patterns, and different emotions have different patterns as well, or different frequencies, different vibrations. When you're feeling an emotion very powerfully, what you're feeling on a quantum level is a certain frequency, a certain vibration of energy. And if that emotion, that anger or that resentment or that grief or sadness or whatever it might be, if that emotion is powerful enough, it may become trapped in the body. So that after the divorce is over, or the bully moves away, or you quit that job, or whatever it might be, you may still have some emotional baggage with you that may adversely affect your life years down the road. I first saw this with a patient that came in to see me who thought she was having a heart attack. She had crushing chest pain, difficulty breathing. Her left arm was completely numb. The left side of her face was numb. And it looked like a heart attack, and I told my staff we might need an ambulance, but let me just check some things on her really quick. And using the emotion code, what I found was she had an emotion that was trapped in her body, an emotional energy, if you will. And the emotion was grief. And using the emotion code, we can ask questions of the subconscious mind and get information that otherwise we might not get. And I was able to figure out very quickly that this had occurred 3 years before. And she burst into tears at that point. And she said, I can't believe that's affecting me. I thought I dealt with all that. I thought I put that behind me. And I said, well, what happened to you? And she said that 3 years before, her husband had an affair. And she found out about it and confronted him, and the whole marriage blew up and resulted in an ugly divorce. And she cried buckets of tears. She thought she was going to be married to that guy forever. And she went to therapy, spent about a year in therapy dealing with it, and had even recently gotten remarried. So as far as she was concerned, that ex-husband was just history. But as far as her body was concerned, the intense emotion that she felt in that event was still with her. And when I released that emotion, the feeling came back into her arm and into her face. within just about a second, whoosh, that fast. And the chest pain was gone, the difficulty breathing was gone. She left the office 10 minutes later, feeling totally fine. And after she left, I remember I sat down at my desk, and I was absolutely stunned. And I remember sitting there thinking, how is that even possible? What did I just see?
Yes.
We now know, right? We now know that people die from a broken heart all the time. You might remember what happened to Doug Flutie, right? His father died of a heart attack. And they were at the hospital. His father had been dead for about an hour. And his mother, he was there with his mother, and his mother leaned over to give her husband a last kiss on the forehead, and she just slumped over dead. And he lost both of his parents that day. It was a very sad, tragic thing, but this kind of thing does happen. So trapped emotions affect us in lots of different ways, and they really, truly are the elephant in the living room, I believe, in Western medicine, because 90%, we find, of all the physical pain that people have is actually caused by their emotional baggage. Think of that, 90%.
Yes.
So if you're in pain right now, there's a 9 out of 10 chance it's actually from something emotional that you experienced, and it might be something many years ago.
And we don't usually even know it's trapped. It's there, but it's in the form of kind of a trapped energy. But we may feel compression in our body. You know, many people don't know the language of the body, and they wouldn't even know how to describe it if you asked them. But somehow it's there in the form of physical compression, would you say?
Well, sometimes it is, yes. But then sometimes we really don't know that we even have a trapped emotion. And sometimes the results of the trapped emotion are not physical. Sometimes they are simply mental, emotional. Sometimes they're both. For example, I had a man that came in to see me once, many years ago. He was in really severe pain with his low back. On a 0 to 10 scale, 10 being call 911, he was a 9. And what I found on him very quickly was he had a trapped emotion of anger from something traumatic that had happened to him about 20 years before. And it was manifesting now as this terrific pain in his back. I released that trapped emotion, and the pain basically just disappeared. It went from 9 to 0 about that fast. And he was amazed, and I was grateful that it worked so well. But a couple of days later, he came back in to see me, and he said, you know, Dr. Nelson, he said, when I came in to see you, there was something that I didn't tell you. He said, as long as I can remember, I've been a rageaholic. He said, I've always had this anger issue. I've been to anger management several times. I'm always yelling at my wife and my kids. I got to watch the road rage. He said, but since you released that emotion of anger, not only is my back pain gone, but I don't feel angry anymore. I just feel kind of different. I feel kind of peaceful. He said, how does that work? And at the time, I said, I really don't know.
Beats me.
Yeah, right. But if you can imagine, now think of this, a trapped emotion is literally a ball of energy. When you're feeling an emotion, you're feeling a certain energy, a certain frequency, a certain vibration. Anger is different from sadness, and that's different from frustration. They're all different. But when you have a trapped emotion, it's literally an invisible ball of emotional energy from about the size of a baseball to about the size of a melon. And these will lodge in the body, and because the body is just an energy field, when you have this emotional baggage in the body, it not only disrupts the normal energy field of the body, thereby interfering with chemical reactions and the flow of energy and the blood flow, lymph flow, and so on, but it also causes you to feel that emotion more readily than you otherwise would. So, for example, this guy had this trapped emotion of anger that was causing his back pain, but it was also causing him to be more susceptible to feel angry, because it's the strangest thing. But think of this. He had a trapped emotion, this ball of anger in his low back from 20 years before, and when a situation in his life would arise that might tend to make him feel angry, he would slide right into that emotion, right into that feeling much more readily than he otherwise would have. Why? Literally because part of his body was feeling that vibration, feeling that emotion 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. for 20 years. We all have baggage like this. And the beautiful thing about the emotion code is that it just enables anyone to find this baggage and get rid of it really simply, really easily.
Wow, thank you so much for explaining such profound things in a way that is quite understandable. Okay, so what exactly did you do with this woman who thought she was having a heart attack and this rageaholic man? It's simple, and what is it that you do?
Well, basically, in the emotion code, the first thing that we teach is how to access the subconscious mind. You see, the conscious mind of the individual is a computer. Our conscious mind is where we live. We go to school with our conscious mind. We make our decisions and so on. But the conscious mind is really a very, very small part of our total intelligence. Your subconscious mind, on the other hand, is incredibly intelligent. It's smart enough that it can take the ham sandwich that you had for lunch and it can convert that into cardiac muscle tissue or new nerve seeds, right? It's an order of intelligence that's beyond our ability to really understand. That part of us, that subconscious mind, is a holographic archiving computer. It remembers everything you've ever done, every face you've ever seen in a crowd, everything you've ever eaten, tasted, touched, smelled. It's all in there in perfect detail, down to the cellular level and even down to the quantum level. Now, what we have learned is that we can access the subconscious mind, and there are a number of different ways that we can do it. We use different forms of muscle testing, which are basically methods of biofeedback. But I can share with your listeners right now a really simple method that they can do right now while they're listening, if you'd like.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, we call this one the sway test. Now, let me explain this. If you put a plant in a room with uniform lighting all around, it will just grow straight up. But if you put a plant or a speaker in that room, and that speaker is playing beautiful, soothing classical music, they've done studies. They found that the plant will actually grow towards the sound coming out of that speaker. On the other hand, in these same studies, they found that if that speaker is playing harsh, grating sounds or intense kinds of music like screamo, things like that, the plant will grow away from the speaker. In fact, the roots will bend away from that sound coming out of that speaker. Now, the human body is an organism, a very complex organism, but like a plant, we will respond to positive or negative input. So here's what I'd like you to do. You can stand up if it's possible, and if you can't stand, you can sit on the edge of your chair. And
be careful to do this if you're driving, people. Okay.
Exactly.
So just listen to Dr. Bradley Nelson. Okay.
If you're driving, try this when you get home.
Yes,
okay?
Yes.
But if you are already at home, what you do is you just stand, drop your hands down to your sides, close your eyes, and just allow your body to totally relax. Now, the human body will tend to sway backwards if you're standing, away from thoughts of negativity or falsehood or incongruency. It will tend to sway forward toward thoughts of positivity or truth or congruency. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you something negative first, and let's see what your subconscious mind wants to do. So I'd like you to think about, as you're standing there totally relaxed, eyes closed, I'd like you to think about the word war. Now, we hear that word every day. We've heard it all of our lives. But what I'd like you to imagine is, imagine trying to explain to someone what really goes on, what really does happen. On a human level, in war, what happens to people? As you're standing there relaxed, think about that. What happens to families? What happens to individuals? What happens to cities and villages? And think of all the tears that have been shed on this planet since day one from all the wars that have been fought. Now, as you think about that, that very negative thing, which is war, the moment your subconscious mind connects with what you're thinking about, at that same moment, your body will start to sway backwards. And that's your subconscious mind trying to move you away from the sheer negativity of that thought. Now, let's shift and try something positive. I don't know, are you doing this along with me?
I am doing it, and so is my producer, Ron.